Snow pressed hard against the windows that Christmas Eve, the kind of storm that made the whole neighborhood in Colorado Springs feel like it was holding its breath. Inside the Holt home, the lights on the Christmas tree flickered weakly, as if unsure whether they should shine or give up. Avery Holt stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, hands still dusted with flour from the sugar cookies she had baked with her daughter, Harper. She had planned everything exactly the way Brandon loved it: the warm dinner, the soft music, the quiet house, a family waiting. But only two of them were there. Harper, wearing her red pajamas with reindeer on the sleeves, kept glancing at the front door as if magic could pull it open. "Mommy, is Daddy's plane late again?" she asked, hugging her stuffed bunny so tight its ears bent. Avery's throat tightened. She forced a smile. "He said he'd be home before the snow gets bad. He promised this time. Promised." The word scraped. She checked her phone again. No call, no message, no missed alert saying his flight was delayed, just silence, long, cold, familiar. Then a notification appeared. Her heart leaped at the thought it might be him, but it wasn't. It was a bank alert. A document she supposedly signed had been processed. A document she had never seen. Her stomach dropped. Avery clicked it open, pulse hammering. It was a loan agreement, $240,000 filed under her name as the guarantor. Her signature, forged perfectly. Brandon's work, it had to be. He had promised everything would get better after the holidays. Promised she didn't need to worry about the business. Promised she should trust him. Her breath shook. Her palms went cold. She looked around the quiet house, the one Brandon insisted must stay in his name for financial reasons. The one she could lose. The one Harper believed would always be home. She reached for her phone again, finally dialing him. Straight to voicemail. Outside, the wind howled and rattled the shutters as if the whole world knew something she didn't want to admit. Harper tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Mommy, is Daddy choosing us tonight?" Avery knelt, pulled her daughter close, and stared toward the door, toward a life she feared was already gone. And then her phone lit up again, revealing something that made her legs nearly buckle. It wasn't Brandon calling back. It was the first sign she had been betrayed far deeper than she ever imagined. The notification on Avery's phone wasn't from Brandon at all. It was an automated reminder from the airline confirming that his return flight, supposedly scheduled for Christmas Eve, had been canceled 3 days earlier. Not delayed, not rescheduled, canceled. Meaning he had known he wouldn't be home, meaning he had lied before he ever left. Avery's first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the airline changed things without telling him. Maybe, just maybe, he truly meant to come home. But beneath every hopeful excuse, a memory tugged at her, sharp and painful. Because this Christmas wasn't the first time he had broken a promise. She walked into the kitchen and leaned on the counter, staring at the gingerbread house she and Harper had decorated that afternoon. A lopsided roof, crooked candy canes, too many gumdrops, perfect in all the ways that mattered. She wished the same were true for her marriage. She wished memories didn't crowd her like ghosts. Last Christmas, Brandon missed dinner because he had to take a meeting with a supplier. Avery spent the night wrapping gifts alone, pretending the ache wasn't real. 2 Christmases before that, he'd flown to Chicago for urgent business talks, leaving her 8 months pregnant and terrified she'd go into labor with no one around. 4 Christmases ago, he didn't even call. Each year, the excuses grew smoother, the lies cleaner, the guilt in his eyes fainter, and each year, Avery convinced herself to forgive. She told herself that people made mistakes, that marriages had seasons, that love meant trying. But standing in the dim glow of their kitchen, staring at Harper's untouched plate of cookies, Avery felt something shift, not anger yet, but a quiet, devastating clarity. She reached into the drawer where she kept documents. They were always messy, covered in handwritten notes from freelance clients. She pulled out Brandon's folder. He never let her open it, claiming it contained boring business files. But tonight, her hands moved on instinct, as if her heart already knew the truth her mind feared. Inside the folder, she found photocopies of several contracts and loan applications, some incomplete, some rejected, some stamped pending. Her name appeared again and again. She had never signed a single one. Her breath caught. Her ribs tightened. She felt the room sway. He had done this for months, maybe years. Harper peeked into the kitchen. "Mommy, do you think Daddy forgot the way home?" Avery forced a steady breath, smoothing her daughter's hair. "No, sweetheart. Daddy never forgets. He just gets lost sometimes. But Avery wasn't sure if he had lost his way, or if he had simply walked away from them long ago. She tucked Harper into bed early. Then she returned to the kitchen table and stared at the pile of forged documents, the canceled flight confirmation, the bank alert blinking on her phone. This wasn't abandonment, it was betrayal. And as the wind roared outside, blowing snow against the windows in wild spirals, Avery felt something icy and certain settle inside her chest. Because in that moment, she realized Brandon wasn't gone by accident. He was gone by choice, and she was about to discover just how far he'd gone. The house was silent after Avery tucked Harper into bed, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the sharp, buzzing kind, the kind that fills every corner of a room when the truth is finally too loud to ignore. Avery moved slowly, almost mechanically, gathering the scattered documents and placing them on the dining table beneath the soft glow of a single lamp. Outside, the storm thickened. Snow piled against the windows like the world was trying to trap her inside the life she was finally beginning to see clearly. Her phone buzzed. Still no call from Brandon. Instead, another notification, this time from their joint credit card. A new charge had posted. Avery's chest tightened as she clicked it open. A luxury resort in Aspen. A 2-night stay. A charge for a suite with a private fireplace, spa access, and balcony views of the snowy mountains. Check-in. December 23. Check-out. December 25. Her hands trembled. Aspen. Not Denver, not Chicago. Aspen, the same place. Brandon once said he couldn't afford to take his family because money was tight. Yet he was there now, on Christmas, celebrating, relaxing, indulging, without her, without their daughter, without even the decency of a lie that made sense. Another receipt loaded automatically beneath it, a dinner for two at a 5-star restaurant, the kind where the waiters whisper and every plate looks like art. 2 entrees, champagne, a dessert for sharing. Avery leaned back in her chair, heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Her first instinct was disbelief. Maybe he was entertaining a client. Maybe this was business. Maybe, but she already knew. She had known for months but refused to name it. She remembered the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his coat last spring. The late-night emergency meetings. The way he angled his phone away from her. The sudden, unexplained trips. The new clothes. The gym obsession. And now Aspen. Her throat burned with humiliation. She rose, pacing the length of the kitchen, trying to steady her breath. She had always been the one to give the benefit of the doubt, always the one to forgive, always the one to wait at the window like a woman in an old story who didn't know any better. But she knew better now. Just then, headlights flashed across the living room wall, slow, creeping, deliberate. Avery froze. It was close to midnight. No one visited at this hour. She stepped quietly to the front window and peeked through the curtain. A dark SUV idled at the curb, engine humming beneath the storm. The driver wasn't Brandon. She knew the shape of his truck like she knew her own heartbeat. This vehicle was newer, sleeker, out of place in their quiet neighborhood. Then the driver's door opened. A figure stepped out, bundled in a heavy coat, moving with purpose toward her house. Avery's breath caught, because whoever was approaching her door on Christmas Eve wasn't coming with good intentions. Avery's breath fogged the window as she watched the stranger step out of the SUV. Snow whipped across the street in thick ribbons, blurring the edges of everything, yet the figure moved with certainty, like they knew exactly where they were going. Her house. Her door. Her. She backed away from the window, pulse hammering. Harper was asleep upstairs. The thought made her chest tighten even more. A firm knock echoed through the hallway. Avery hesitated. She considered pretending no one was home, but the lights were on, and her car was in the driveway. Whoever this was, they knew she was inside. She approached slowly, stopping just short of the peephole. Her hands shook. She forced herself to look. Relief washed over her, shaky and unexpected. It was Jordan Reyes. Her neighbor from 2 houses down, the firefighter who had helped her carry groceries last month when her arms were full. He was solid, dependable, the kind of man who spoke gently and showed up without being asked. Even now, snow clung to his jacket and eyelashes, but his expression was serious. Avery cracked the door open. "Jordan, what are you doing here?" He exhaled a cloud of mist. "I saw lights on and, honestly, I got worried. The storm's getting bad, and your front porch light was flickering. Thought you might need help." His eyes searched hers. "But you look like something's wrong." "Dead sure." Avery swallowed hard. She had always kept her problems to herself, protecting Brandon's image, protecting what little stability they had left. But tonight, the weight of it all was too much. She stepped aside. "Come in, just for a minute." Inside, Jordan glanced at the table, covered in documents. His brows knit. "Is everything okay?" She shook her head. "No. Not even close." She told him not everything, but enough. The cancelled flight, the Aspen charges, the forged loan document. Her voice cracked twice, but she kept going, driven by something raw and desperate inside her. Jordan listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening more with every detail. When she finished, he spoke quietly. "Avery, this isn't a mistake, this is fraud. And manipulation. And you can't stay alone tonight with all this happening." She looked down. "I don't know what to do." "You don't have to know right now," he said gently, "but you shouldn't face it in an empty house during a storm. Do you have anyone you can call?" Avery's silence was answer enough. Jordan glanced at the window, then back at her. "Let me at least check the perimeter, make sure no one else is out there." "No one else?" she repeated, confused. He nodded. "Less than an hour ago, there was a report on the scanner. Someone matching Brandon's description was seen driving north out of Denver. Officers couldn't confirm the destination." Avery felt the room tilt. "Jordan," she whispered, "are you saying he might be coming here?" Jordan stepped toward the door, voice low and certain. "I'm saying we need to be ready, because tonight isn't over." Jordan stepped out into the storm with the kind of calm that made Avery's panic feel even sharper. She watched through the front window as he moved down the walkway, checking shadows, the driveway, the street where snow piled on the curb like icy walls. The SUV he'd arrived in was already frosting over, headlights dim under the thickening snow. Everything outside felt unreal, like a scene from a movie where danger crept just beyond the frame. Inside, the house felt too quiet. Avery paced the living room, arms wrapped around herself. Questions kept circling her mind like vultures. Was Brandon really on his way home? If so, why? To fix things? To confront her? Or because he somehow sensed she had finally uncovered everything? Her phone buzzed again. Avery flinched, snatched it up. Another email alert. This one was worse than the last. It showed multiple failed login attempts to her online banking. Someone trying to access her account. Someone who had her social security number. Someone who had already forged her signature once. Fear rippled through her like a cold wave. She checked the stairs, listening for any sign that Harper had awakened. The little girl slept deeply, oblivious to the storm outside and the storm inside her own home. Jordan returned a moment later, stomping snow off his boots before stepping inside. His face was tense. "There are fresh tire tracks at the end of the street," he said quietly. "Not mine, not any neighbors." Someone stopped, waited, and pulled away. Avery's stomach twisted. "Brandon?" "I don't know," Jordan replied. "But someone was watching this block not long ago." The room seemed to shrink around her. Jordan lowered his voice. "Avery, you need a plan. If Brandon forged your signature and is trying to access your accounts, this isn't just infidelity, it's criminal. And men who cross financial lines often cross emotional lines too." She sank onto the couch, trembling. "I don't have family nearby. I don't have anywhere to go." "You're not staying here tonight," he said firmly. "The storm's bad, but not bad enough to keep us from getting you somewhere safe. I'll help you pack a few things, then we take Harper and go." Avery looked around the living room, the photos on the wall, the gifts under the tree, the memories embedded in every corner. Leaving now meant accepting that everything she believed about her marriage was dead. It meant admitting Brandon was not a man who had lost his way, but a man who had deliberately led her into darkness. She swallowed hard. "Jordan, if he really forged my name, I could lose everything. The house, my credit, my work, my footsteps. Not inside. Outside. Slow, deliberate. Heavy enough to crunch through the snow." Jordan froze. Avery's breath caught in her throat. He moved toward the window, peering through a narrow slit between the curtains. His shoulders went rigid. "Avery," he whispered. "What? Who is it?" she whispered back, heart hammering. Jordan turned, eyes wide with something she had not seen in him before: fear. "It's not Brandon. but whoever it is walking straight toward your house." The footsteps grew louder, crunching through the thick snow like someone determined to reach the door, no matter how brutal the storm became. Avery's pulse thudded in her neck. Jordan moved closer to the window, body angled protectively between her and the sound outside. The house felt suddenly small, as if the walls were holding their breath right along with her. Then came the knock. Not a frantic pounding, not a timid tap. A single, steady knock. The kind that announced confidence and intention. Avery's knees weakened. "Jordan, who is that?" Jordan didn't answer right away. He edged to the peephole and leaned forward. After a long moment, he exhaled sharply. "It's a delivery uniform. UPS or FedEx, I can't tell in the snow. But nobody delivers packages at midnight in a blizzard." Avery's skin prickled. She remembered the unauthorized attempts at her bank login, the forged documents, the mysterious charges. What if this wasn't a stranger? What if Brandon had sent someone? The knock came again, firmer this time. Jordan gestured for Avery to step back, then cracked the door open just enough to speak through it. "Can I help you?" A man in a thick brown coat stood on the porch, snow crusting his shoulders. His beard was wet, his breath visible in the frigid air. He clutched a small padded envelope in one gloved hand. "Package for Avery Holt," he said, voice rasping. "Needs to be signed." Avery felt her stomach twist. "Jordan, I didn't order anything." Jordan kept the door mostly closed. "We weren't expecting deliveries." The man shrugged. "Not my business. I'm just supposed to drop it off." But the sender requested a signature. Jordan narrowed his eyes. "What sender?" The man looked down at the envelope. "Keaton, Logistics." Avery's blood froze. Keaton. Brandon's last name. Jordan pulled the door shut instantly, securing the lock. "Avery, step back. Now." She obeyed, breath trembling out of her. "Why would he send something? What is it?" "I don't like this," Jordan muttered. "If he wanted to reach you, he'd call. Showing up through a delivery in the middle of a storm? That's not normal." The man knocked again, hard enough to rattle the frame. "Avery Holt," he shouted through the wind. "You need to sign for this." Jordan reached for his phone. "I'm calling the police. This doesn't feel right." But before he could finish dialing, the knocking stopped abruptly. The sudden silence was worse than the noise. Jordan hurried back to the peephole, then jerked away. "He's not on the porch." "Dico." Avery's heart dropped. "Where is he?" Jordan scanned every window before saying, low and tight, "Gone." But not far. Avery felt the air thin around her. She looked toward the envelope, now lying on the porch. Someone had slid it through the crack beneath the door. A small, ominous square against the hardwood. Jordan bent to examine it without touching. "Avery, I think this is a message." A gust of wind shook the house. And then Avery saw it, her name scrawled on the envelope in handwriting she recognized instantly. Not the delivery man's. Not a stranger's. Brandon's. And beneath her name, 2 words were written that made her blood run cold. "Open immediately." For a long moment, Avery just stared at the small padded envelope on the floor, as if it were a living thing. The house seemed to tilt around her, every light too bright, every shadow too sharp. Her name on the front, written in Brandon's rushed, slanted handwriting, felt like a hand reaching across the room to grip her by the throat. Jordan crouched beside it, careful not to touch. "Don't open it yet. We don't know what's inside. Could be documents, or something worse." Avery hugged her arms to her chest. Why would he send something like this? Why wouldn't he just call? Jordan gave her a level look. Because whatever he wants you to see, he didn't want a record of it. And Divritnine, a shiver crawled up her spine. Jordan slid the envelope into a plastic grocery bag without touching it directly, then set it on the table. "We'll open it together. But first, sit down. Breathe." She tried. Her breaths came short and thin. Jordan continued gently. "Avery, listen to me. Men who forge documents, who hide financial trouble, who start to lose control, sometimes they panic and make reckless moves. This envelope might be a warning, or leverage, or a confession." Yikes. The word confession made her stomach twist painfully. They sat at the table, the envelope between them like a bomb. Outside, the storm hammered against the windows, the wind howling down the chimney like something alive. "Okay," Jordan said finally, "on 3. Avery reached out with shaking hands, tearing the seal slowly. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper and a USB drive taped to it. Her throat tightened as she unfolded the page. One sentence. Just one. You don't know who you're dealing with. Avery felt the blood drain from her face. What does that mean? Jordan frowned. Plug in the drive. We need to know. She hesitated. Her hands were trembling so badly she could barely hold the USB. Jordan took it for her, sliding it into her laptop on the kitchen counter. The screen blinked, loading a single video file labeled, Look. Jordan clicked play. A grainy recording filled the screen. Brandon sat in the driver's seat of his truck, the interior lit by the dashboard glow. He looked exhausted, angry, and slightly unhinged. Snowflakes melted on his windshield as he leaned forward toward the camera. If you're watching this, Avery, he said, voice low and tight, then you've started digging where you shouldn't. Avery's pulse roared in her ears. I know what you've found, Brandon continued, and I know who helped you, but you need to stop. Now. Before it gets worse. End R1. Jordan stiffened beside her. Brandon leaned closer, eyes cold. You think you understand what's going on? You don't. You have no idea what kind of people are involved. And if you keep pushing, if you keep listening to the wrong person, you're going to destroy all of us. The video cut to static. Avery's breath hitched. What? What is he talking about? What people? Jordan didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened, and his eyes darkened in a way she had never seen before. Avery, he said slowly, there's something I haven't told you, and it's about Brandon's business and the people he owes. Avery stared at Jordan as if he'd spoken in another language. Her mind raced, grasping for any hint, any sign she might have missed. But Jordan's expression, somber, conflicted, protective, told her this wasn't sudden. He'd known something for a while. Start talking, Avery whispered, pulse trembling beneath her skin. Jordan pulled out a chair and sat across from her, elbows on his knees. Brandon's company, Keaton Logistics, it's not what it looks like, at least, not anymore. Avery felt her stomach lurch. What does that mean? Jordan hesitated, weighing each word. About 4 months ago, at the fire station, we started hearing things. Officers, paramedics, people who work the same routes. There were rumors, shipments not matching manifests, trucks making off-route stops, money moving in ways that didn't line up. Someone mentioned Keaton Logistics more than once. Avery blinked, stunned. Are you saying he's smuggling something? Jordan didn't flinch. I'm saying the company was flagged, not officially, quietly. Someone up the chain was watching. Avery pressed a hand to her forehead, feeling like the floor tilted beneath her. Brandon, her Brandon, the man who scolded her for forgetting to track a grocery receipt, the man who demanded every bill be paid early, the man who bragged about keeping everything clean. It didn't fit. And yet, the forged loan documents, the hidden charges, the threats in the video. Jordan, she breathed, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because nothing was confirmed, he said gently. Rumors die every day, and I didn't want to scare you without proof. But now, he gestured toward the laptop. Now he's scared. Which means someone else is moving. Avery shivered. Someone else? Jordan nodded. If Brandon got in over his head, he might have used your name as collateral. Not just for the bank loans, for people who don't wait for repayments. Her breath caught. Oh my God. Jordan leaned forward, voice steady. That envelope wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. He's telling you to back off because he doesn't want you getting tangled in something dangerous. But I already am, she whispered. The house creaked under the weight of the storm. A distant branch hit the siding, making Avery jump. Jordan softened his tone. Look, I'm not trying to terrify you. I just need you to understand why leaving here tonight isn't optional. We pack a bag, we wake Harper gently, and we get out before. His phone buzzed sharply. He glanced at the screen. Then his entire posture changed. What is it? Avery asked, her throat tightening. Jordan showed her the alert. A traffic camera notice from a local safety app. A black pickup truck Brandon's had just been spotted entering their neighborhood 10 minutes earlier. Avery's pulse slammed. He's here, she whispered, stepping back from the table. Jordan rose in one swift motion. Then we move, now. But before they could take a single step, the house shuddered. A car door slammed outside. Then footsteps heavy, fast crunched through the snow toward the porch. Jordan grabbed Avery's arm. Avery, whatever happens next, stay behind me. The footsteps outside were not hesitant this time. They were purposeful, pounding through the snow with the speed of someone who had already made up his mind. Avery's breath hitched as the porch groaned under shifting weight. Jordan moved in front of her, shoulders tensed, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. And then, the doorknob rattled. Once, twice, harder the third time. Avery clapped a hand over her mouth to muffle a gasp. "He has a key," she whispered. "Of course he has a key." Jordan anchored himself against the door, bracing it. "Then he's not walking in, not tonight." From outside, Brandon's voice pushed through the wood, low, slurred, and unmistakably furious. "Avery, open the damn door." A shiver ran down her spine. He sounded different, not just angry, unhinged. She imagined the truck idling behind him, snow swirling around his boots, his face red from either the cold or whatever he'd been drinking. Jordan motioned her backward. "Go get Harper. Stay in her room. Lock the door." "I'm not leaving you alone with him," Avery whispered, panic rising in her throat. "Yes, you are," Jordan said firmly. "He's not thinking straight. He could be desperate." A sudden, violent bang shook the entire doorframe. "Avery," Brandon roared. "We're not doing this tonight. I know you saw the video." Her heart slammed. He knew she opened the envelope. Jordan shot her a quick look. "Upstairs. Now." Avery hurried toward the staircase, but before she made it halfway, Harper's small voice floated down from the dark hallway. "Mommy?" she said sleepily. "Why is Daddy yelling?" Avery froze. She hadn't wanted her daughter anywhere near this storm, literal or emotional. "Sweetheart, go back into your room. Mommy's coming." Because an opening. Another bang shook the door. This time it wasn't fists. It sounded heavier, metallic. Jordan cursed under his breath. He's using something, maybe his shoulder, maybe a tool. "Avery, move." She rushed up the stairs, scooping Harper into her arms, carrying her into the bedroom at the end of the hall. She shut the door softly, locking it, trying desperately not to let her shaking hands wake the child fully. Harper buried her face into Avery's shoulder, confused and frightened. Downstairs, Brandon's voice roared again. "Avery, I just want to talk. Stop hiding behind people you barely know." People you barely know. Avery's chest tightened. He meant Jordan. He had always despised anyone who tried to help her, anyone who interfered with his control. A new sound cracked through the house, wood splintering. Avery felt her knees weaken. He was breaking the door. Her phone buzzed suddenly in her pocket. Startled, she fumbled it out. A text. Unknown number. 3 words. He's not alone. Avery's blood turned to ice. She stared at the screen, then at the locked bedroom door, hearing Jordan shout something downstairs. Another bang. Louder. Harper whimpered. Avery clutched her daughter close. Because someone else was out there with Brandon, and they were coming inside. Avery pressed her back against Harper's bedroom door, clutching her daughter tight as the chaos downstairs grew louder, sharper, more desperate. Every thud against the front door vibrated up through the floorboards, rattling the picture frames on the hallway walls. She couldn't tell if her heartbeat was shaking the house or the other way around. "Mommy, is Daddy mad?" Harper whispered into her shoulder, voice trembling. Avery smoothed her daughter's hair, forcing her voice steady. "You're safe. I'm right here." Another crash split the air, wood cracking, something metallic scraping across the entryway floor. Jordan shouted something she couldn't make out. Her legs weakened, but adrenaline held her upright. She had to think, had to protect Harper, had to survive the night that felt like it had no intention of ending. Her phone buzzed again. The same unknown number sent a second message. "Don't let him see the girl." Her blood froze. "The girl? Harper?" She typed back with trembling fingers. "Who is this?" No answer. Downstairs, Brandon's voice thundered through the house. "Avery. I said, open this door. You don't understand what you've done." Jordan's voice followed sharp, commanding. "Back off, Brandon. This is over. You're not coming near her." A hollow, humorless laugh cut through the storm outside. You think you get to stand between me and my family?" The word family twisted something inside Avery. There had been a time she believed in that word with him, a time she thought he would never become this stranger tearing their home apart. Another crack. The front door finally gave way. Avery clamped her hand over Harper's ear as the crash echoed through the house. Heavy footsteps stormed inside 2 sets, not 1. Brandon and someone else. Someone bigger by the sound of it. Jordan yelled, "Stay back!" Then a scuffle erupted. Furniture scraped. Something toppled. A harsh grunt followed by a thud made Avery's blood turn to fire. She had to do something. Avery scanned the bedroom wildly. Dresser, lamp, blankets. Nothing useful until her eyes landed on the old wooden toy chest by the window. She pulled it aside, exposing the crawlspace panel Brandon had insisted on installing years ago for emergencies. The irony nearly made her choke. She knelt, prying it open silently. "Harper," she whispered, "we're going to play a quiet game, okay? You're going to curl inside here and pretend you're a mouse hiding from the storm. If you thank you." Harper looked up with wide, frightened eyes. "Will you hide with me?" Avery swallowed hard. "Mommy has to stay and listen, but I won't go far, I promise." She helped Harper inside, tucking a blanket over her. She pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead. No sound, no matter what. A crash exploded downstairs. Jordan shouted her name. "Avery. Run." She jerked upright, then froze. A shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. Slow, heavy, silent. Someone was coming down the hallway toward Harper's room, and it wasn't Jordan. Avery's breath stuttered as the shadow stretched across the hallway, long and distorted by the flickering light from the storm outside. Every instinct she possessed screamed at her to bolt the door, push furniture against it, anything, but she couldn't move. Harper was hidden in the crawlspace behind her. If she made noise, if she drew attention, everything would unravel. The floor creaked. Slow. Measured. Someone climbing the final steps. Avery pressed herself against the wall, barely daring to breathe. She strained to hear Jordan downstairs, but the sounds were scattered, shuffling, low voices. Something dragged across the floor. She couldn't tell if he was hurt or simply overpowered. Another step. And another. Finally, a figure emerged from the darkness at the top of the stairs. Not Brandon. A man she had never seen in her life. Broad shoulders, hood pulled low, gloves still on, snow melting down the front of his jacket. He didn't look drunk or frantic like Brandon. He looked calm. Professional. Detached. A man who had done this before. Avery's heartbeat hammered so loudly she feared he could hear it. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "Who are you?" He tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he already knew how to solve. "You're Avery Holt." It wasn't a question. She took a step back. "What do you want?" "That depends," he said, voice unnervingly even. "Brandon said you had something that belongs to him." Her stomach twisted. The USB drive. The envelope. Whatever secrets Brandon was terrified she'd uncover. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered. The man smiled without warmth. "That's not the answer he wants." He took a step forward. Avery's hand moved instinctively to the crawlspace panel behind her, shielding it with her body. "My daughter is sleeping. You don't want to wake her." "That's why," he replied. "I need you to cooperate." Her skin turned to ice. She searched her mind for anything that could buy time. "Where's Brandon?" she asked, stalling. "Downstairs," the man said, "arguing with your friend." He didn't expect resistance. "He's upset." A crash downstairs punctuated the words. Jordan grunted a sound of pain. Avery's heart clenched. "You hurt him?" The man shrugged. He stepped in the way. "Jesus." He took another step toward her. She retreated until her back hit Harper's door. She couldn't draw him closer. She couldn't let him hear the faint sounds of her daughter breathing behind the crawlspace panel. "Don't come any closer," Avery warned, voice breaking but fierce. He paused, not because he feared her, but because her defiance mildly amused him. "Brandon said you were quiet," he murmured. "Passive. Easy to intimidate." "Then he never really knew me," Avery snapped. Another crash downstairs, this one sharp. Something metallic hitting tile. Jordan shouting her name again, strained, desperate. The man shifted his weight, preparing to move. Avery's mind raced. She had no weapon, no strength, no plan. But she had seconds. Maybe less. Then footsteps behind the man. Fast, familiar, closing in with force. Jordan's voice, hoarse but powerful, erupted from the stairwell. "Avery, move. I confront it." She dove sideways, just as the man spun, reaching for something in his coat. But it wasn't Jordan who stepped into view. It was Brandon, and he was holding something she'd never seen him lift in his life. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze, not with the storm outside, but with the sight of Brandon at the top of the stairs. Snow clung to his jacket, his hair matted from the wind, his cheeks flushed with rage and something darker. But it wasn't his expression that made Avery's legs buckle. It was the metal rod in his hand. Not a gun. Not a knife. A tire, iron heavy, rusted, and gripped like he'd been ready to swing it. "Step away from her," Brandon snarled at the man in the hood, voice cracking from fury. "I said I'd handle this myself." The man didn't flinch. "You weren't handling anything. You're panicking. That's how people get caught." Brandon whipped toward him, lifting the iron. "I told you to stay downstairs." Because Fora. Avery could barely breathe. These two weren't strangers to each other. They weren't allies, either. They were entangled, uneasy, combustible. Jordan, bleeding from the forehead, staggered up behind them. "Avery, stay down the hall. Don't come closer." Brandon barked, "Shut up. You ruined everything." He pointed the tire iron at Avery, eyes wild. "You went through my files. You opened the package. You think you can just walk away from this?" "Walk away?" She wanted to scream. Instead, she stayed low, shielding the crawlspace door with her body. The man in the hood spoke again, tone icy. "Keaton, we don't threaten family. That wasn't part of the deal." Brandon shot him a look so vicious it made Avery's stomach twist. "My wife stopped being family the moment she stole what wasn't hers." Avery's voice broke. "I didn't steal anything. You forged my name. You dragged me into your mess." He took one step toward her, iron raised slightly. "You don't understand what I'm dealing with. You never did." "I didn't have the chance," she whispered. "You never told me the truth." The man in the hood stepped between them abruptly, blocking Brandon's path. "Enough. She's not part of this. The debt is yours." "Debt." The word echoed in Avery's skull. Jordan staggered another step upward, gripping the railing. "Avery, listen to me. You and Harper have to run. Now." But Brandon snapped. "Nobody is going anywhere. Importance is." His voice cracked like splintering wood. "You think I'm losing everything tonight? No, I'm fixing it." He shoved the hooded man aside and lunged toward Avery. Jordan reacted first. He collided with Brandon, slamming him into the wall. The tire iron clattered to the floor. Harper, hidden behind the panel, let out the faintest whimper. Avery's heart stopped. Brandon heard it. His expression changed, sharpened. What was that? Avery froze completely. Brandon shoved Jordan off him and took a step toward her room, toward the crawlspace panel, toward her daughter. "Avery," Brandon whispered, voice chillingly calm. "What are you hiding?" Avery blocked the door with her body, shaking. "Don't go near her." Brandon smiled slowly, horribly, then step aside, and strongly. Avery felt the world compress into a single point, the small wooden panel behind her containing everything that mattered: her daughter's breath, her daughter's heartbeat, her daughter's life. She pressed her back against the door, palms flat, shaking but firm. Brandon took another step toward her, eyes gleaming with a mix of anger and revelation. "So that's what you're protecting," he muttered. "Figures. You always cared more about her than you ever cared about me." "Ever." Jordan pushed himself upright, blood running from his brow. "Brandon, stop. You're not touching her. Not tonight. Not ever again." Brandon didn't even spare him a glance. "You think you get to talk about my family? You don't know anything about sacrifice." The hooded man, still standing near the top of the stairs, watched in cold silence. He didn't intervene. He didn't warn. He simply observed, as if he was there to make sure Brandon followed through with whatever chaos he'd created. "Brandon," Avery said, trying to gather her voice from the rubble of fear. "Please, just stop. We can talk downstairs. Away from Harper. Don't drag her into this." "Too late," he hissed. "You dragged her into this when you snooped through things you didn't understand." Avery's pulse slammed. "I didn't understand because you hid everything from me. The loans, the debts, the off-route trucks, the forged signatures, you did all of that, you." It's Teminate. For a flicker of a second, something like guilt passed across his face, then it hardened into stone. "I did it for us," he snapped, "to cover expenses, to keep the business running. You think I wanted to go to those people? You think I had a choice?" "Everyone has a choice," Avery whispered. He laughed, a hollow, broken sound, Not when you owe the kind of men I owe. The hooded man's eyes narrowed slightly, as if warning Brandon he was talking too much. Avery's heart dropped. So this isn't about me at all. It's about them. Brandon lunged suddenly. Jordan grabbed him again, dragging him back by the collar. The two men slammed into the wall, knocking down framed photos of holidays that suddenly felt like lies. Brandon smiling with Harper on his shoulders, Avery leaning in close, pretending everything was okay. "Get her out!" Jordan shouted through clenched teeth as he fought to restrain Brandon. "Avery, go!" As experience. Avery reached for the crawlspace latch, whispering, "Harper, honey, it's okay, we're leaving." But Brandon kicked free of Jordan's grip and shot forward, grabbing Avery's wrist hard enough to rip a scream from her throat. "You're not taking her," he roared. "You're not taking anything." Avery twisted, pulling away, desperation turning to something sharper, ferocity. "Let go of me." He didn't. Jordan surged forward again, but this time the hooded man stepped in front of him, blocking the hallway completely. "Enough," the man said coolly. "No one leaves until the original agreement is settled." Brandon froze. Avery stared, horror rising in her lungs. "What agreement?" she whispered. The hooded man finally lifted his gaze to hers. "The one where your husband promised something he doesn't actually own." Avery's mind blanked. The hallway seemed to stretch and compress at the same time, as if the house itself recoiled from the hooded man's words. Brandon went rigid, his grip on her wrist loosening just slightly, not from mercy, but from fear. "Don't," Brandon growled at the man, voice trembling. "She doesn't need to know. She already knows enough," the hooded man cut in. "And you're the one who dragged her into this mess." Jordan wiped blood from his face, glaring at both men. "Tell her what you promised, Brandon. She deserves the truth." Avery's pulse pounded so hard it made her vision blur. "Promised what?" she asked, voice cracking. Brandon looked away, jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumped near his ear. He still didn't answer. The hooded man sighed like he was tired of babysitting a reckless child. "Your husband needed time," he said slowly, deliberately. "And when a man needs time, he offers collateral, something valuable enough to hold interest. Interest." Avery felt cold creep through her bones. "Collateral?" The man nodded. "He offered a guarantee." Her stomach twisted. "Money?" "No," the man replied. "Something more reliable, something no bank can seize." Brandon finally snapped. "Shut up. You don't talk to her. You don't." The man shoved him backward so fast, Brandon slammed into the wall, knocking a framed photo to the floor. Harper's smiling face cracked behind shattered glass. Avery pressed a shaking hand over her mouth. Jordan stepped forward. "Tell her. Now." The hooded man met Avery's eyes. His calmness terrified her more than Brandon's rage. "Your husband promised he would stay in the business for 1 more year. That he would keep certain deliveries moving. That he wouldn't disappear. That he wouldn't get cold feet. And when he did..." A pause. Avery's breath hitched. "He offered something as assurance," the man continued. "Access to his home. Access to his records. Access to anything he could use to repay the debt if things went wrong." Avery shook her head violently. "No, he wouldn't use our home." Brandon looked away. Jordan's jaw tightened. "He did more than that, Avery." The hooded man nodded. "He offered your identity." The words hit her like a blow. "My, what?" "Your clean credit, your name, your documents, a fallback asset. If he failed to deliver or attempted to run, we'd collect debts through the resources he provided." "Number." Avery stumbled backward until her shoulder hit Harper's bedroom door. "You used me as collateral?" Brandon squeezed his eyes shut. "Avery, it wasn't like that. I was desperate. You don't understand." "No," she whispered, voice shaking. "I understand perfectly." She saw it all now, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts, the sudden hotel bills, the envelope, the video threatening her to stop digging. He hadn't been protecting her. He'd been protecting himself. Downstairs, something crashed heavy footsteps on broken wood. The hooded man turned suddenly, listening. "Others are here," he muttered. "This just got complicated." Avery's heart stopped. Because if there were more men in the house, the night was about to get far deadlier than anyone had planned. The thudding downstairs grew louder, multiple sets of boots stomping through broken wood, splinters crunching beneath them. Avery felt her pulse slam against her ribs. She looked from Brandon to the hooded man, then to Jordan, who was barely standing. Whatever was happening below them had nothing to do with panic or a husband out of control. This was organized. Someone else had come to collect. Jordan staggered to Avery's side. "We need to barricade the door, now." But the hooded man lifted a hand. "Don't. If they think you're resisting, they'll escalate." Avery's voice cracked. "Who are they?" Brandon answered, hollow and shaking. "People I borrowed from. People who don't forgive delays." Jordan grabbed Brandon by the collar. "You brought them here? To her house? With a child inside?" Brandon shoved him off. "I didn't bring anyone. They tracked me. They said they needed a guarantee that Avery wasn't talking to the wrong people." "Wrong people?" Avery choked out. "Like who? The police? A lawyer? Anyone who could have actually helped us?" Brandon didn't answer. Footsteps climbed the stairs, slow, heavy, synchronized. These weren't men looking for conversation. Each step felt like a countdown. The hooded man looked toward the staircase. "They shouldn't be here. They weren't supposed to move this soon." Avery shook her head. "What do they want?" "Collateral," he replied coldly. "What your husband promised." Jordan stepped between Avery and the hall. "Over my dead body." Brandon's panic shifted into fury. "Don't get heroic. You're making things worse." Jordan turned on him. "You sold out your wife. You put your daughter in danger. You don't get to talk about worse." A sharp whistle echoed up the staircase, one long note, like a signal. Avery's skin crawled. 3 men appeared, faces half-covered, jackets heavy, moving with silent coordination. One carried a crowbar, another held a flashlight and a binder. The tallest scanned the hallway, as if memorizing the layout in seconds. Then his eyes landed on Avery. He smiled. "Mrs. Holt, we've been looking for you." Avery pressed her back against Harper's door, fingers trembling. Jordan stepped forward, fists raised despite his injuries. The hooded man moved too, standing between both groups, torn, tense. "You don't touch her," Jordan warned. The tallest man chuckled. "We're not here for her, not yet." He opened the binder and flipped to a page. There, next to clipped documents showing Avery's forged signature, was a photo of Harper. Avery felt the floor vanish beneath her. Brandon lunged toward the binder. "No, I told you she wasn't part of this." "You told us a lot of things," the man replied, slamming the binder shut. "Most of them lies." The crowbar holder stepped forward. "We'll take the kid. She's leverage." Avery broke. She shoved Jordan aside, standing between the men and the door. "You're not touching my daughter." The tallest man raised a brow. "You think you can stop us?" A breeze of cold air swept down the hallway. A new pair of footsteps approached, the kind that didn't belong to criminals. The hooded man's eyes widened. "Oh no," he muttered, "not him." Because someone else had entered the house, and every man in the hallway suddenly went still. The hallway fell silent so suddenly, so completely that Avery felt the hairs on her arms rise. The 3 men froze mid-movement. Even Brandon stiffened, breath caught in his throat. Only Jordan, bracing himself against the wall, looked confused. He didn't know the name or the threat behind the footsteps. But the criminals did. A tall figure stepped into view at the top of the stairs, brushing snow from his shoulders. His coat dripped melted ice onto the hardwood floor. He looked nothing like the others, no mask, no hood, no attempt to disguise himself. His confidence filled the hallway like smoke. The hooded man whispered under his breath, "He shouldn't be here." End quote. Avery couldn't breathe. "Who is that?" The tallest criminal lowered his crowbar, not out of mercy but fear. "Mr. Vance," he said stiffly. "We weren't told you'd come." Mr. Vance. A name Avery had never heard, yet something about it made the cold storm outside feel warm in comparison. Vance's eyes swept across the hallway, pausing on the binder with Harper's photo. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he looked at Avery directly at her, with a strange expression she couldn't decipher. Not sympathy, not anger. Something sharper. "I came," Vance said, voice calm as steel, "because Keaton is making a mess of things." Brandon flinched. "Sir, I had it under control." "Clearly," Vance said dryly, gesturing to the shattered door, the bleeding firefighter, the terrified woman guarding a child's room. "This looks like excellent control." Brandon's face paled. The tall criminal tried recovering his composure. "We were just collecting repayment, per your instructions." "No," Vance corrected, stepping closer. Per my instructions, you were to wait. Keaton owes us, yes, but we don't harm families unless they interfere. Avery's heart pounded. I didn't interfere. I just found documents Brandon forged. I didn't even know who any of you were. Vance studied her slow, assessing. And yet you opened an envelope addressed to you, a natural reaction, not a hostile one. The hooded man lowered his eyes, as if he suddenly regretted every action he'd taken. Jordan shoved himself upright. If you know she's innocent, then get your men out of her house. Vance looked at Jordan, and something flickered in his expression, a glimmer of respect. You protected them, he said. Most men wouldn't. Jordan didn't back down. I'd do it again. Vance nodded once, almost approvingly. Then he turned back to his crew. Change of orders, he said. Nobody touches the woman. Nobody touches the child. Keaton alone is liable. Brandon stumbled forward. Sir, please don't do this. I can fix it. Vance's eyes hardened. You had your chance. Many chances. He stepped toward Brandon, and the criminals stepped aside instinctively. Avery held her breath. Was Vance here to help? Or finish what Brandon started? Before anyone could react, Vance reached into his coat and pulled something out, a folded document with Avery's name on it. He held it toward her. Avery Holt, he said quietly, before this continues, you need to know the one thing Brandon has hidden from you the longest. Avery's hands shook as she reached for it. Vance didn't release it. He leaned in and whispered, You were never just collateral, he signed you as part of the deal itself. Avery's fingers trembled as she grasped the document Vance held, but he didn't release it immediately. His eyes bore into hers, steady, unreadable, almost surgical in their precision. When he finally let go, the paper felt heavier than its weight, as though it carried every secret Brandon had buried over the past year. Avery, Jordan warned softly, breath ragged, you don't have to read it now. But she did. For months, years, she had lived inside Brandon's version of reality. Tonight, the truth was the only weapon she had left. She unfolded the paper. It wasn't a loan. It wasn't a property contract. It wasn't even a forged signature. It was worse. Her name appeared in bold print beside 3 chilling words, personal guarantee holder. Avery felt pressure clamp around her chest. What does this mean? Vance clasped his hands behind his back like an instructor addressing a class. It means your husband offered your identity as a binding assurance for his involvement with our operations. If he failed to meet deadlines or payments, your assets, accounts, and reputation would be seized instead. Avery's voice cracked. He signed my life away? Brandon stepped forward, desperation spilling from every frantic movement. I didn't have a choice. They needed leverage. They said I wasn't reliable enough, alone. You were the only stable thing I had. Jordan lunged toward him, fury snapping like a whip. You used her. You put her and her kid in danger because you couldn't handle your own mess. The hooded man moved between them, blocking Jordan. Enough fighting. This is between Keaton and Vance now. Avery clutched the paper, her voice trembling but sharp. Why me, Brandon? Why not your business, your truck, your own identity? Brandon's face twisted with the truth. Because I already burned through all of that. Silence. Thick. Paralyzing. The 3 criminals exchanged glances, confirmation she hadn't been meant to hear that. Vance exhaled slowly. He wasn't just incompetent, Mrs. Holt. He was reckless. He hid shipments. He diverted funds. He lied to his own partners. You weren't collateral. You were the last bargaining chip. Avery's stomach twisted in rage and betrayal. And what now? What do you want from me? Vance shook his head. Nothing. Your husband's contract is void the moment fraud is proven. And thanks to your discovery tonight. He gestured to the binder, the forged signatures, the video. Fraud is undeniable. Brandon's face drained of color. Sir, please, I can turn it around. Vance raised a hand. You had your chance. We don't ruin innocent families. We ruin the men who try to use them. His crew stepped forward. Brandon stumbled backward, panic surging. No, you can't. She'll testify for me. She'll tell the police I didn't mean to. Avery cut him off, voice steady for the first time all night. I'm done protecting you. Brandon stared at her as if she'd stabbed him. Avery, please. But before he could plead again, a roar of wind slammed against the broken front door, and from downstairs came the unmistakable crack of splintering wood. Someone else had entered the house. The criminals went still. Vance turned sharply, and Avery realized with a jolt that whoever had just arrived was here for her. The crash from downstairs was different this time, sharper, heavier, like a door hadn't just been opened but torn apart. Every man in the hallway tensed. Even Vance's calm, calculated demeanor fractured as his eyes snapped toward the staircase. Avery clutched the contract in her hands, knuckles white. "Who else is here?" she whispered. No one answered. A second thud echoed through the house, followed by a voice deep, controlled, but furious. "Brandon Keaton, step where I can see you." Jordan's head jerked up. "That's Wait, I know that voice." The tallest criminal swore under his breath. "Damn it, they found us." "Who?" Avery demanded. Before anyone could respond, footsteps surged up the stairs, powerful, unafraid, absolutely uncompromising. A beam of light swept across the walls as a figure rounded the corner. A sheriff's badge glinted in the dim light. Sheriff Nolan Carter. Jordan gasped. "Nolan, why are you?" But the sheriff didn't even look at him. His gaze locked on Avery instantly, softening in a way none of the other men seemed capable of. "Avery," he said, breath heavy from the storm, "are you hurt?" Her chest tightened. She hadn't spoken to Nolan in almost a year since he moved districts. They had never been close friends, but he had always treated her with a kindness Brandon mocked. A steady presence at neighborhood events. A quiet protector. Someone who had once gently told her, "If you ever feel unsafe, call me, even if it's 2 a.m. And she never had. Avery swallowed. "No, I'm okay, Harper's hiding." Behind Nolan, 2 deputies appeared, weapons drawn. The criminals straightened, eyes narrowing, calculating their odds. Vance lifted a hand. "Stand down," he ordered his men. "We don't kill officers." Sheriff Nolan's voice dropped into steel. "Then you're already smarter than Keaton here." Brandon flinched. "Nolan, listen. I can explain." "You can explain at the station," Nolan snapped. "After we get Avery and her daughter out of this hell you dragged them into." Vance stepped slightly forward, posture controlled but threatening. "Sheriff, you're interfering in business that doesn't concern you." Nolan gave him a slow, dangerous smile. "You broke into a home with a child inside, threatened a woman, ran an operation across 3 counties. It concerns me now." One of the criminals raised his crowbar, but Nolan's deputy cocked his weapon instantly. The standoff thickened like the air before lightning strikes. Avery felt the tension coil around her throat. "Nolan, please, don't let them near Harper." "I won't," he said. "But you need to get her. Now." Jordan nodded. "I'll go with her." Nolan shook his head. "No, Jordan stays with me. These 3 won't go quietly." "If now." The hooded man muttered, "We shouldn't have come inside." Vance exhaled slowly. "Agreed." Then a sound Avery hadn't expected. The quiet click of a safety being released. She turned. Brandon, not the criminals, was holding a gun he had taken from the fallen drawer near the steps. His hand shook violently, eyes wild. "Nobody is taking my family away from me," he rasped. "Not the cops, not these men, not anyone." He aimed the gun, not at Vance, not at Nolan, not at Jordan, at Avery, and his shaking finger began to tighten on the trigger. Avery didn't feel the world, not the cold, not the storm, not the shattered frames on the hallway floor. All she felt was the barrel of Brandon's gun aimed squarely at her chest. His hands trembled so violently the weapon jerked with every heartbeat, yet the terror in his eyes made him unpredictable, dangerous, unreachable. "Avery," Brandon panted, voice cracking. "Don't move. Don't take one more step toward that door. I swear to God, don't do it." Jordan stepped forward instinctively. "Brandon, put the gun down. You don't want to." "Shut up," Brandon screamed, the sound raw and animalistic. "You think you know what's best for her? You think you get to swoop in and be the hero? You don't know anything." Nolan raised a calming hand, his own gun held but pointed at the floor. "Brandon, listen to me. Whatever you're feeling right now, it does not end the way you think it will. You pull that trigger, you lose everything, forever." Brandon's breathing hitched. "I already lost everything." Avery took a slow, careful step backward, shielding the crawlspace panel with her body. "Brandon, please. Harper is in this room. She can hear you. Don't do this in front of her." His face contorted rage, grief, desperation, twisting into something unrecognizable. I did all of this for us. For you. For our family. Avery's voice cracked. Families don't survive on lies. Or fear. Or threats. His grip tightened. Jordan tensed, ready to lunge. Nolan lifted his weapon half an inch. The criminals shifted like wolves sensing blood. Vance watched with frigid calculation, as if waiting to see which way the night would break. The house felt one breath from exploding. Then, a tiny sound. A whimper. From behind the crawlspace door, Brandon's eyes flicked toward it. Avery, he whispered, horror dawning in his expression. Is she? Did you hide her from me? Avery swallowed. I hid her from danger. Brandon's whole body shook. I'm not danger. I'm her father. No, Avery whispered, tears filling her eyes. You were her father. Until tonight. Something snapped inside him. He raised the gun again, both hands gripping it now, knuckles white. Avery closed her eyes for a single heartbeat, not to give up, but to gather whatever strength she had left. Nolan shouted, Brandon, drop! The gunshot split the hallway. A deafening blast. A flash of white. A jolt that shook the floor. Avery staggered back, ears ringing, unable to tell if she'd been hit. Jordan shouted her name. Nolan yelled orders. The criminals ducked. Smoke curled from the barrel of Brandon's gun. Then Brandon collapsed to his knees, staring at his hands, stunned. The hooded man stood behind him, one arm extended, a small tranquilizer gun in his grip. Idiot, the man muttered. You almost ruined everything. It's a Saz. Avery gasped for breath, knees trembling. But before anyone could move, Vance lifted a hand sharply. Everyone quiet, he commanded. Because down the hallway behind the crawlspace panel came the faint, unmistakable sound of wood shifting. Someone, or something, was coming out. And Avery realized Harper wasn't hiding anymore. The crawlspace panel slid open, just an inch at first. Avery's breath caught as a small hand emerged, gripping the wooden edge. Then Harper's trembling face appeared, her cheeks streaked with tears, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Mommy? She whispered. Avery dropped to her knees instantly, arms open. Baby, it's okay. Come to me. Harper scrambled into her embrace, burying her face in her mother's neck. Avery held her tighter than she ever had in her life, feeling the storm inside her finally crack wide open. Everything she had fought through tonight, all the terror, all the betrayal solidified into one fierce truth. She would protect this child no matter what. Nolan lowered his weapon. Jordan exhaled sharply in relief. Even Vance's hardened expression softened a fraction. Brandon, still half conscious from the tranquilizer, lifted his head. Harper, he slurred. Come here, sweetheart, Daddy's right here. Harper clung tighter to Avery, shaking her head violently. No. End quote. That tiny word hit harder than any bullet. Brandon's face twisted a mixture of heartbreak and realization. Avery, please don't turn her against me. Avery leaned forward, voice steady but full of sadness. I didn't have to, Brandon. You did that yourself. Nolan motioned to his deputies. Take him. He's facing charges for endangerment, fraud, identity forgery, breaking and entering, and attempted violence with a firearm. Brandon's eyes widened in panic as the deputies cuffed him. Avery, don't let them take me. I can fix this. I can fix everything. Avery shook her head once. The only thing you ever needed to fix was yourself. And you never tried. Jordan placed a steadying hand on Avery's shoulder. She didn't flinch. For the first time, she felt what safety actually tasted like. Vance stepped forward, hands raised to show he meant no harm. Mrs. Holt, your involvement ends here. The contract is null. You and your daughter are no longer tied to him or his obligations. Avery searched his face for deception, but found none. Why help us now? Vance inhaled deeply. Because Keaton made the mistake of underestimating the only innocent people in this entire disaster. And because some of us still have rules. He turned, signaling his men. We're done. The criminals disappeared down the stairs as quietly as they had arrived. Nolan approached Avery gently. We'll get you somewhere safe tonight. And tomorrow, we start the paperwork. You won't be alone through any of this. Harper peeked up at him. Is Daddy going to jail? Nolan knelt beside her. Yes, sweetheart, but you and your mommy are safe now. That's what matters. Avery kissed the top of Harper's head, tears slipping down her face this time, not from fear, but from release. Jordan exhaled, placing his hand over his heart with a shaky smile. "You two are staying with me tonight. No arguments." For the first time all night, Avery nodded without hesitation. She stood, holding Harper, stepping over shattered pieces of her old life, and into the first moment of her new one. "All right, take a breath with me. The story has finally come to an end, a long, painful, beautiful journey of survival. And if you are still here, listening until this very moment, then something in Avery's story must have touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself, a moment you lived through, or a fear you never said out loud. And that's why I want to tell you this, softly and honestly, the way I would if we were just two friends talking late at night. Life will break you sometimes. People you love may betray you. Promises may fall apart. But as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Avery didn't rise because life got easier. She rose because she finally understood she deserved better. And so do you. Healing isn't a miracle, it's a choice made every day in small, brave steps. If this story stirred something in your heart, if it made you see yourself with a little more strength, then please like this video, share it with someone who might need courage tonight, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue walking through these stories together. You are not alone, and your new beginning can start right here, right now.